The story that's now coming up is a slightly deeper story. I'm only saying that for a reason, because this story, I can give you a little bit of a trigger warning for this story, that for all the ladies in the room, this story talks about some things that possibly, when you hear them, they might be a little graphic in nature, but it's a true story, and it's a story that I felt should really be shared with all of you. Poonam is going to be telling the story. She's a small town girl. She's a closet poet. She loves traveling solo. She's a sucker for romantic movies. She's a mom of 4, and one day she wants to buy a place in the hills so she can set up an Airbnb so that she can see the world through other travelers' eyes. I think that's such a great aspiration to have. Poonam is here. Please give her a big round of applause. Big round of applause.
So I'll take you back to 2016, the day Event and Entertainment Management Association launched WeCare, an initiative that worked towards creating a safe workplace for girls and women in events. I was given the responsibility of leading this initiative. So when event agencies walked up to sign their support for WeCare, I stood in a corner quietly, feeling a sense of redemption as my mind traveled back years when probably the seed for this effort was sown in me. I shut my eyes momentarily and dedicated this initiative to Preeti. Who was Preeti? Why did I think of her today of all the days? So every year during summers, we would hire interns to work with us. They would come for a few weeks, stick around, learn something, and then they would move on to continue either their studies or work. They were an excited bunch of youngsters who came to event agencies to get a flavor of the profession that they thought was glamorous. That year, we had a few of them. Of them, one stood out. She was bright and bubbly, and she was just 19. She had big dreams, the biggest being that she wanted to be a name in the events industry. And like a lot of youngsters, she was drawn to this profession because of the glitz and glamour that they thought it was all about. I would watch her as she stood with the old hands in my team, tirelessly asking them questions about events, and then listening rapt with attention as they told her the stories of the stuff that we did. I would I kind of loved her enthusiasm for the business that I was part of. I would also worry about the rose-tinted glasses that she wore as she imagined this industry. I tried to tell her that the glamour was just the top layer of what she saw. And beneath it, there was a lot of hard work, a lot of failures, a lot of frustrations, a lot of heartache. And then I would also try and tell her that this industry had many layers to it. There was the good, there was the bad, and there was the ugly. But the positive kid that she was, she wouldn't really care about all that. All she knew was of her dream to one day be handling big stars and do big shows. It was so simple for her. We had a big event coming up, and for days she hounded me, saying she wanted to work on the event with me. I refused. I said, "You're just not ready for it." And each day I would walk into office and see her disappointment. She'd look at me with baby eyes. And so against my better judgment, I gave in. I told her, "All right, you come and work with me backstage, but you stick around to where I can keep an eye on you." She promised she would do that, obviously. On the day of the event, she stuck by me. She just, like a shadow, she just kept watching me. She just kept observing. And we went through the routine of presentations, speeches, launch, awards. And I could sense her excitement each time I gave a cue to console. Finally, we got over the formal part of the show, and we came to the bar opening and the entertainment beginning. The backstage girls started to wrap up and we started to move out. On our way out, I got stopped by the client and started chatting with them. After a while, I looked over to where the girls were signaling that, get ready to move out from here. It's not a very comfortable place to be in, 250 men drinking and dancing. So I kind of glanced over to where the girls were waiting and checked to see if all of them were there. And suddenly I noticed that Preeti was missing. I quickly walked across to them and asked them, where was she? So they said they hadn't seen her. I told them to go and wait in the lobby for me, and I went looking for her. I went to the hall, then I went to the pre-function area. I couldn't see her anywhere. I had a bad feeling about this one. I walked backstage because that was where I had seen her last, and I looked around. The place looked like a war had just taken place there. It was all dark, eerie, quiet. I couldn't find anybody there. And I was about to leave and go out when, on some instinct, I decided to check the green rooms. So I went through a couple of them and I came to the fourth one. And as I lifted the curtain, I just froze. Preeti stood there, pushed right against the wall. A man held her, one hand covering her mouth and the other pawing her. And she looked straight at me, her eyes full of fear and terror. Instinctively, I pulled the man back and, just pushed him away. And what I saw made me it was worse than what I had seen first. It was one of the client's team members, and he was a young expat, totally drunk, incoherent. And he just kept trying to grab Preeti. I pulled her away behind me, held her hand tightly, and with the other, I kept pushing him away. And I kept wondering, what on earth am I going to do now? It wasn't something I was prepared for. I didn't know how to handle this. Anyway, I kind of had to decide because here there was a big party going on outside. And inside there was a client retching his guts out in the green room and a child shivering behind me. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and quickly called the client and another member of my team and told them to come backstage immediately as there was an emergency. I think they sensed the urgency in my tone, and within minutes, both of them were there. Their expressions were something else. And by then, the molester was lying on the floor, and I was beyond reasoning. I just kept insisting, call the cops, call the cops, call the cops. The client calmed me down, and he told me, Poonam, it's not going to serve any purpose. He'll be covered by diplomatic immunity, whatever that means. But I just looked at the two girls looking at me, and their eyes were imploring me to do something. Something should be done that's right. And I kept telling the client, you have to do something. And he told me, I promise you will take the strictest action against him. We'll make sure he's relieved of his duties immediately and sent back to the country. I said, I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. He said, okay, I'll write it down for you. And once he'd written it down, he left the room, dragging the guy behind him. I sat for a long time, holding Preeti in my arms and trying to console her, trying to stop her shivering. But both of us were crying silently. She out of fear, me out of rage and helplessness. I don't know how we got through that night or the days after. The client kept his side of the promise, and the molester was let off and went away. Despite counseling, Preeti chose not to work in events. We've stayed in touch. We've kind of looked out for each other. The incident never left me. I kind of never really forgot what happened. Neither did I forgive myself. I just kept questioning myself. What would have happened if I hadn't gone looking for her? What would have happened if the cops would have come? Would something have been done differently? Could I have handled it better? These questions continue to haunt me to this day. And I'm glad I never let go of the rage that I felt within me, because I knew that would propel me to do something good someday for this issue. And years later, I did. We Care is my way of telling Preeti that I neither forgot what happened that night, nor did I forgive myself for not taking a stand on that day. It is an effort for Preeti and for all the girls like her who come into the event industry with dreams in their eyes. I want those dreams and the passion to stay. Thank you.